Well, hello there. I didn't see you. Welcome to another episode of the Obstacle Order podcast. My name is Philip, and we will be joined shortly by Mr. Beni Gifford. Before we get into that, I want to tell you very important announcements. The Obstacle Order podcast is brought to you by Obstacle Course Racing Media, or OCRM, and is being presented by Mudgear. Let me tell you something about Mudgear real quick. Mudgear is performance apparel built tougher for outdoor warriors. Gear up to conquer obstacles at mudgear.com. Now that's been said, on to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good, Philip. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, So I'm going to break the fourth wall. I do that sometimes, and just say that to everybody listening out there, it is a big honor to have young Benjamin Gifford. I don't know if you have any nicknames or anything, but we might come up with for one for you before the time is up. But this kid is a phenomenal OCR. You're 26 or 28 now, is that correct?
Just turned 27 a
Just
few days
turned
ago.
27. Well, savor the flavor, buddy, because those years are going to start speeding up. Somebody told me that when I was like youngin', and now I'm 34, and it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
All right, so you're 27. God, the list of your accolades is ridiculous. I mean, you are a highly decorated OCR warrior from what, like 22 different OCR series from, I mean, stuff like mainstream items like Spartan Race to Conquer the Gauntlet to Terrain Race to lesser known Merrill like Merrill Down and Dirty to probably Duty Battle Frog before they bit the dust.
Dude, I loved Battle Frog. That was my bread and butter.
What was your favorite thing about Battle Frog?
Oh, how difficult. Ultimately, one of the main reasons they went under was my favorite thing, which is just their obstacle difficulty was unparalleled, and because of that, they just couldn't get repeat signups except for the elites, who we all
Right.
know don't pay for anything.
Right. Well, some of us elites do. Like I'm on the elite train that does have to pay. I don't get invited to stuff, other than for my media
Oh, no,
presence.
no, no, no. I
But
mean, we pay for our registration fees and stuff, but that doesn't account for that accounts. I worked for Battle Frog, and so I
oh
know
oh
exactly what it accounted for. It accounted for exactly 1% of anything that ever made. So if you're not an idiot, you're not going to cater to the 1%.
right. And I think that them trying to blanket the entire nation in like a 1 year period, probably combined with the like $100,000 prize purse, um, may have had something to do with their ship sinking as well.
Dude,
But
everyone thinks about the prize money, but one of the main things that sank their ship was, by the way, it was quite a large ship that they didn't even blink at that prize money. When I was working for them, I was the Colorado race manager, and at the time, they had two race managers per location. And if you remember, they had over 70 races that last year.
right.
And so that's two people per location, and they were paying us full benefits and 50K each to essentially
Say that
talk
again.
50
50K.
50K full benefits, two per race location, and our job wasn't even sales. Which, if you're gonna pay somebody that much, there needs to be trackable sales, because essentially what we did was we were a glorified Spartan street team. We went to businesses and gyms and things
What?
like that, and we said, "Hey, come become basically our Spartan street team." There was no
Yeah.
actual sales. It was crazy.
Okay. So that was kind of just poor upper management on their part. It kind of seems like.
They were
Um,
taking one final stab at their sinking ship floating, and it didn't work.
yeah. Yeah. Shit, man. Well, Battle Frog, we miss you. If there's anybody from the corporate team listening or anyone who's run out there, shit, we say it all the time. It's just, man, that was such a great race.
Epic.
Epic race. Anyway, so for those of you listening at home, and those of you watching on YouTube, you can see what Benny's doing. What are you doing with your hands there?
Sorry, I'm used to doing, because I co-host Obstacle Dominator. I'm used to having these and not having the video on me, so I'm just picking away at my
Yeah,
callus over here. 'Cause
it's a new thing, and you know what? I got to tell you, Eli hates it. He's like, I don't like video, and I'm like, I'm gonna try it out because I feel like it's we can we can take the same amount of effort and hit two media platforms, and he's really passionate about not doing that because he doesn't like cameras on him, and I'm just an idiot that will babble all day and look as pretty as possible on the camera. So I'm like, dude, just let me just launch this thing, and we'll see what happens. If nothing happens, then it's on me. So why are you picking all your why are you picking all your calluses off? You took the week off. Is it from the three letters that I want to cover today? So
It
yeah,
is from TMX Championships last oh shoot
it was
two
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Yeah,
Okay.
so my hands were they would have healed by now, but leading up to that, I was living with Hunter McIntyre in Park City, and we
Living
were.
with Hunter Mac. That's got to be like living with one of the Clockwork Orange crew. That's
Oh,
what I imagine.
I might be showing my age here, but I have no idea who that is.
You are showing your age when you say that. In
Okay.
fact, just skip that movie because it's going to mess you up in the head.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's
I
just
won't.
a
But so
gotcha.
Hunter and I, those 2 months leading up to TMX Championships were like the most hardcore training cycle I've ever had. All we did was live in the gym and come back and play video games and just shit talk and stuff inside our apartment and go back to the gym. And we did that because we're living in this gorgeous place, and it was driving us insane because we couldn't go out and explore because we were trying to squeeze every ounce of what our bodies could give us into efficient training. So that last week after Tough Mudder X, when we went back to Park City, we had 1 week of partying and fun before he went back to Malibu and I came back here to Dallas. So we were playing tennis and racquetball constantly and doing different things with our hands. So they didn't really get a chance to heal until just now.
Right.
And I'm going to be doing a Conquer the Gauntlet this weekend because I've been dying to do one of those for a while. I did one 2 years ago and I had a great time. So I'm going to do one of those this week, and I'm just trying to get all the extra skin off right now.
Cool. Awesome. Very cool. I noticed a
Yeah.
lot of athletes because you and I met face to face last weekend in Dallas. Are you in Dallas right now? Is that
Yep, yep. I'm
where
in
you normally
Richardson,
live?
so just north of Dallas.
And I'm sorry, where was that?
Richardson, just north of Dallas.
Richardson. Okay, cool. Because we met at you were just kind of puttering around AT&T Stadium, yelling at Yancey when he was on the bike, and we've got some great footage of that, by the way, that we'll post up.
Sweet.
And then I was like, hey, you are familiar, Mr. Beni Gifford. We should talk. And so here we are. But you mentioned that you were taking the week off because TMX was just soul crushing and thrilling and and now you're back in it at Conquer the Gauntlet.
Yeah, so the main thing, it wasn't so much that it was soul crushing, even though it was undoubtedly that. It's 'cause you can recover from a soul crushing race. What you need to recover from is a long extended period of time training for something in particular. Like that's why we have off season. But Tough Mudder X made it more complicated because originally, the Spartan World Championships, OCR World Championships, they're all like around that October
Right.
end of year
Like kind of
time frame.
fourth
So
quarter type time of the
exactly.
year. Yeah.
So you can off season it during the winter and then start building up a training cycle to peak athletically during the championship season. Well, Tough Mudder X was like, ha, we're gonna throw a chink in your armor and
Right.
put a championship race in the middle of the year. So I couldn't take a whole month and a half off for off season like I normally would. I just took like a little week off of no training, no running, no nothing,
Any
and
yoga or anything, like any movement practice at all, or was it just video games and walking around too?
Um, no, no, nothing physical. Like if I would have wanted to go for a swim or something extremely no impact, usually I'm not this anal about it. Like during off season in the winter, we've got a month and a half, and I'll still go to the gym occasionally. I'll go running. I'll just do what I want to do rather than follow a training plan. But because I only had a week this time,
Right.
I really made myself. I played more video games than I cared to admit to stop myself from going to do something like play tennis or go mountain biking or something like that. So
Yeah.
that was a dedicated week off. And let me tell you, my first session back in the gym was not so glorious. It was
It's
like
kind of.
yeah,
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
it was like starting an old engine. And I'm not nervous, but it's always a little nerve wracking to start the engine a few days away from a race and be like, whoa, that did not feel great.
Yeah, you start to you look at your numbers from when you
Oh,
were peaking right before TMX, and psychologically, I mean, as an intellectual, you also know that hey, I don't I should not expect to be able to push these numbers as easily, but the masculine side of your brain, I guess, is like screw that, man, let's go, like put the
yeah,
plates on, let's push, let's lift, let's pull, but then your body's like pump your brakes there, bro.
yeah.
And yeah, it's a slow. Hold those calluses up. Let me see those things.
Well,
Are they?
they're mostly gone
Oh
now.
yeah, yeah. That's not too bad.
No, I've got just a little bit left. Even if I had to race right now, it wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
I don't have any reason to rip again.
Gotcha. You've got something just happened to your audio there. Is that who's that there? Is that your audio?
That, that's my mom.
Hi, mom. Now you have to be on the
Yeah,
podcast. You were trying to creep in.
yeah, she's a little.
Come on,
I
give
was
us a
gonna say,
wave.
yeah, I was making. That's right, everybody. My mom just made me a meal.
Hell
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
What'd she
It's
make
not.
you?
Okay, so I was making ramen because I thought I could make it within like 2 minutes, and indeed I could
Oh,
not. And so I was like, Mom, I gotta go out there and get this interview. Could you just finish this? But yeah,
that's okay.
she's
And
super
you're eating
camera shy.
ramen. You're eating ramen with a spoon. That's weird, Benny. That's real weird.
Hey, it's
Noodles
my
with a spoon. Maybe it's some sort of athletic edge that us in the plebeian crowd need
you,
to explore a little bit.
you can shovel more into your gaping maw that way.
There you go. Well, I find that when noodles go on spoons, they fall off unless they're really tangled up like that.
Oh, and so yeah, they do.
So so let's because I mean you're having lunch, so have lunch. But as those ramen noodles cool, can you tell me a little bit more background first, and then we'll get into TMX because I know a lot of people they're like we want to hear about TMX before CBS lets everybody know what's up. And
Right.
if you're not like an OCR insider and like live and breathe this stuff, they might not be as informed as they would like. So you just turned 27. You've been doing OC. Were you a soccer player before this? How'd you find OCR? What drew you to it? And then I'll get into some specifics after that.
Okay, so I wish I had a formal athletic background. People look at my body type and they think, soccer, swimming, or running.
Perfect for what you're doing now.
Exactly, and I'm lucky that I am naturally gifted in that way. But I didn't have a background athletically. I grew up in a no team sports. I tried out every year of high school for my soccer team because I loved playing soccer with my friends and never made it. I made it through the
Really?
tryouts
Wow.
every year, but I was never good enough like skill wise. And I didn't do track. I basically was a part of a really adventurous Boy Scout group growing up, and we spent a lot of time outdoors doing all kinds of different stuff, like not so much mountain biking, but a little bit of mountain biking, a lot of water sports, canoeing, small boat sailing, cliff jumping, all kinds of different stuff.
What was
That
your
kept
troop
me
number? Troop number.
262. Yeah,
Troop 200 right here, Memphis,
dude.
Tennessee. Boom.
I can't actually believe I remembered that. I didn't know
You'll
until it
never
came out
forget
of my
that.
mouth. I was
You'll
like, oh,
never forget that.
2062. Yeah.
You'll never forget that.
I can't believe I remember that. Yeah, dude, all about the Boy Scouts.
Cool.
That was like some of the best memories of my childhood, actually. But no, I wish I would have. I was a really insecure, shy kid in high school because I grew up. So I grew up Mormon in a family of 8.
Really? I
I
did
grew
not
up.
know that.
Yeah, I was homeschooled for 4 years. I was the only one in my family because I was a little hyperactive kid in school, and the principal was like, either you take him out and homeschool him, or we're putting him in alternative school because I
Take
couldn't.
him out.
Yeah. My mom was like, "That's stupid." And so she homeschooled me, and that combined with only being exposed to like the Mormon culture and my family put me in this box. So that my first year that I went back to school was freshman year of high school, when it was no longer cool to have your mom dress you and talk about how much you love your mom. And the first time I heard a girl swear was the first day of high school, and it blew my mind. I literally was just floored, and it totally like because I was raised, women are these angelic, pure, beautiful creatures, and they are you women. You're messed up. Some of you are crazy.
Then high school hit. Well, that's
Yeah. Hey, stop. Sorry, got doggos in the background.
hey dog.
Um,
You just settle down, buddy. So I had no idea you were raised LDS. Some of my best friends are LDS. Shout out to the Watts family. What up? Um,
hey, I knew some Watts growing up. Sean Watts and forget his name. I don't know. Sean was like this cool high school football player. Anyways, sorry, keep going.
sounds like it. Their kids are so Ryan and Jenny Watts are. Ryan was the head of neurology at Genentech for many years, and then they moved to um, somewhere in Utah.
Hey,
And
stop.
he started his own think tank, and it's completely off topic, so that's where I'm going to leave that. Um,
Okay.
okay, but really great people. Hey, watch out. You're on camera, man. And this is
I'm,
this is being filmed in Northern California. We don't want PETA like reaching out and saying
I'm chucking pillows. I'm
Beni
chucking pillows.
Gifford
My overly
beat
fluffy husky.
beats his dog with pillows.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So how'd you find OCR, man?
I was going to college at this other university that I went to two universities. The second one I went to was Collin College here in Texas. And I knew a buddy there who I met in theater class because I majored in theater.
No
And
shit. Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome. A man after my own heart. That's awesome. I want to
yeah,
talk about man. We're gonna. This is turning into a profile of you again because
hashtag thespians. Uh,
hashtag thespians in the house. I actually have 7 plays under my belt from high school, college, and a little bit afterward that
hey,
I've
nice.
never actually said on the air before. But yeah, let's
Look at
let's
that.
let's circle back to that in a second. So you okay? You're a theater major, which does explain your personality a little bit. I can see you
Yeah,
thriving well in the theatrical circle.
I loved
Um,
it.
it's fun. Okay, so
So,
theater OCR, those two are how
so
those mix.
I met a guy named Tim. He was a guy I started training with and stuff, and he sent me a YouTube video of a Spartan race of like macho dudes throwing spears and running through the mountains with their shirts off, and I was like, this looks super cool. Um, and he said, let's do this. And we signed up for a race that was in Austin, so 3 hours south of Dallas. It was 2 months out. We are like, let's start training for it. We didn't know what we were doing. We started like benching heavy, and
That's
which has
perfect.
absolutely nothing to do with OCR. But 2 days or 2 or 3 days before, all three of the guys that I ended up signing up with bailed, and I was the only one who went. I don't know why. I still don't remember why. They just ended up not going. And this was really intimidating for me at the time because even though I was into theater, theater was kind of like a something I did to make myself come out of my shell because I was really shy and insecure. I had hair down on my shoulders, not so much in college, but I was coming out of, my whole life of being insecure. And so to go to this event where it's just macho dudes run around everywhere and hot chicks and people who are friendly and talkative was really intimidating. And I signed up in the elite heat and I got 18th. I didn't fail anything. And I had the time of my life. But then I saw, I think it was either Vidal or John Yatsko go home with prize money. And I thought, are you freaking kidding me? Like, I paid to do this. You're telling me I can flip that on its side and get paid to do this if I actually work my ass off. So it sounds a bit extreme, but I literally like dropped out of college, broke up with my girlfriend, and I was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm going hardcore this, and if you're not on board, get out of my way.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. All right, so it was excuse me, it was the money that that caused you to
Well, not the money, the ability. We all have things we love, but something that I was really looking for in my life at that time was something that I could turn into a lifestyle, which has to support you, not just a hobby. And I knew that that was something I had just done that brought me so much joy, and it was wildly enjoyable. And then I saw that it could actually be a stream of income, which takes it to the next level because you're no longer just like, oh, I could enjoy this on the weekends while I work my boring 9 to 5 job. It's how I actually make a living at it. Um, funny. I don't know if I've ever told this in an interview. I always forget about this part, but um, so they called it the Spartan Race Austin, and I thought that meant it was going to be in
nope.
Austin, so I didn't need
I
to
can
like
tell you
book a
that
hotel.
ain't happening right now.
Yeah, I was like, I don't need to book a hotel ahead of time. It's Austin. There's no way they're booking out the whole city, but I didn't know it was
It's
in,
in
in
like
it was in
it's in
Burnett.
Killeen or something like that. Oh,
Yeah,
where
and
was it?
so
Sorry.
it's in Burnett,
Okay.
Texas. And so when I finally got out there and realized there was no vacancy within like an hour and a half's drive of it, I'm a poor college kid. I'm driving this little tiny sports car. It's a Pontiac Solstice. I'm 6'3". There's no way I can
Sexy.
sleep in this thing. Yeah. Hey, everyone says it's a girl car, but I thought it was dead sexy, and there were a lot of girls who thought it was sexy. So you can all
Dude,
suck it.
one of my best friends has a 1995 Ford Ranger, and granted, he's 6'7", but that guy gets more chicks than I can. I don't know.
Right?
I don't know. I'm out of that
Right?
game. I'm happily married, but I mean, this guy is a magnet of chick magnets, which kind of
Yeah.
sounds wrong, but you know what I mean. Okay, so
No, I get it. I get it. So I get there and there's no vacancy anywhere and I can't sleep in my car. And so I pull up to this McDonald's. Anybody who's gone to this Spartan race knows this McDonald's. And they have a play place. And so I was like, I guess this is happening. And I jumped the fence and I slept in like the tubes
yeah,
like the tallest tube at the top, just praying that no kid was gonna like come crawling around and be like, "Mom, there's a homeless guy up there." But it was a great time, and I drove back just high off the Spartan vibe and discovered that it wasn't just Spartan race; it was all these other different OCRs, and that's how I got into it.
That is a hell of a story, and um, especially the sleeping in strange places the night before. And I'm sorry, refresh my memory. Was that your first Spartan race that you did that?
Yeah, yeah,
Got
it
it.
was my first obstacle race.
Yeah, and you learned real quick that when Spartan says Dallas, it might be Oklahoma.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, we've I'll spare you the stories, but we've had some issues like that. Spartan Race Vegas in particular is not even in Nevada. It's
What?
yeah, it's another story for another day. But we ended up camping in the desert
Awesome.
in New Mexico, and da 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 da
It's not even.
da. No, it's not. All right, so let's talk TMX. Switching over. You went in. You're training with Yancey Camp, and tell me everything right now while you have your mouth full of noodles. Go. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Chew away, man. So, so you were how far out? You had there were two prelims before the championship.
Right.
In the and this is the second year of TMX. Two prelims, and they were about 3 months apart, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and you did you train with Yancey Culp's Yancey Camp the entire time coming into this, or were you on your own, or was Hunter just like, hey man, let's go out and live in the woods and freaking train and chase
Okay,
bears and
so
stuff? How'd it work?
Yancey is my coach. He's my primary coach, and he's been structuring my training since I came in. Well, about a year after I came into obstacle racing, he's responsible for my foundation, my sharpened edge, and everything. And one thing that you'll notice if you study all the greatest athletes in the world is they don't just have one coach. They work with several coaches, several physios, several mental game strategists, all these different people. And so Yancey is always here. I'm one of his roster athletes that you can train with at yanceycamp.com. He's responsible for the core of my training. And I went up to live with Hunter because why wouldn't you go accept training with the guy who's won the event and is undoubtedly going to win it again by far? Why wouldn't you accept training with him? And those 2 months leading up to Tough Mudder X, I was training a mixture of Yancey camp workouts and mixed in sessions with hunters, and it made for a fantastic balance. I didn't broadcast this beforehand. Actually, this is the first time I'm saying it. I didn't post about it or anything because there's no reason for my competition to know I was struggling with this at the time. But my volume shot up through the roof because I was trying to do basically everything Hunter was doing and everything that Yancey wanted me to do. And which if I would have told either of them what I was doing, they'd be like, "You're stupid, don't do that." But I did it anyways. And I developed a about to be stress fracture in my right shin that I didn't know about until, I mean, I felt like pain and stuff, but I figured it was, I don't know, maybe just light overuse or any number of the tweaks we get every week training. But it started to persist, and about 4 weeks out, I went to a physio that Hunter was working with that works with the Olympic ice skating team. And he said, after doing a bunch of different stuff, he was like, dude, you're like a few hard runs away from a stress fracture in your shin, which obviously I do not want. So for about 3 weeks leading up to TMX, I didn't do any running. Everything was on an assault bike, which is not ideal, obviously, but there's nothing you can do. So I went off on a tangent there. But yeah, Yancey's my coach, and I mixed it in with some of Hunter's training while I was there.
Okay, beautiful. So when you the original track was if Yancey camp was your camp the entire time leading up to TMX, all I guess throughout 2018
Yep.
leading up. So yes would be the answer to that. Now did he reach out to you, or did you reach out to him? Was he just like, oh, I know who you are, I want you to come and train with us? Because you're a coach for his camp as well now, right?
Well, yeah. So the way it happened with Yancey was we just had the Dallas Stadium Sprint where you and I met a couple days ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I met him there 3 years ago when I did the race, and I was fighting with him the entire last mile. We were just going back and forth, me and Yancey, and he crossed the finish line. I don't remember if it was right behind me or
I'm
right
sorry.
in
Where
front
was
of me.
what race was that?
The Dallas Spartan Stadium Sprint.
Of what? Of 2017?
No, of 2014, I think.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, I
Yeah.
wasn't there yet at that one. My first year was 2016.
Oh no, I'm
Uh,
sorry. 2015 was my first stadium race, and I do believe Yancey beat me because I can't remember the actual race, but I do remember fighting with him until the end, and then afterwards he came up to me in the stadium. I kind of knew who he was, but he was like, "Hey, this 40-year-old guy has no business beating you. Let me coach you." And I was like, "All right. I mean, you just beat me, so obviously
right,
you know something."
right.
So, and then about I don't know, maybe a year after that, he put me on his roster for athletes that anybody can sign up and train with.
That's great, man. Okay.
Yeah.
And so obviously his training has been effective because he's just a
Oh
great
yeah.
guy and he knows his shit. Um,
Yeah.
now, so so you make it to well before we dive into TMX. I know I promise guys fourth wall break. We're gonna get to TMX in just a second. Hunter, was that? Did you was he? How did you and he link up? Because I imagine him just kind of like standing outside your window, knocking on like 1 a.m. Kind of like, hey man, come on out here and train. Let's get weird in the woods. I'll make you into a badass.
Well,
Uh,
we did all of the above, but it wasn't quite like that. But we had started. So when I came into the sport, I fanboyed just like everybody else does over whoever their athlete is that they choose. Some people go for Killian. Some people go for Kent because he looks like a sexy Ken doll walking
he
around.
is a sexy man. Yes, he is.
He's very sexy. But when I came into the sport, I discovered I didn't even know what a podcast was, but somebody told me go listen to Obstacle Dominator. And so I grew up, well, I say grew up, but like grew up in the sport on Obstacle Dominator. So Ben Greenfield and Hunter McIntyre
Yep.
and Rose Wetzel and interviews with all the other people like Hobie and Isaiah. And so I kind of fanboyed mostly over, the elites. And then I kind of really started honing in on Hunter because he was one of the hosts of Obstacle Dominator. And I don't know, we just started running into each other at races and seeing each other, and eventually we started rooming together at Tough Mudder, like the Tough Mudder X, the inaugural one in Hugo, Minnesota last year. There were a couple of different races we ended up rooming for, and I don't know, we just realized that we're cool like when we hang out, and it
Yeah.
was fun. So Hunter was like, dude, we should do this. We originally were talking about making like this big athlete house in Durango, but so many people bailed. It was going to be like Mac Rush, Matt Kempson, Cole Schwartz and one of his buddies. I think Nicole Miracle and Faith Stenning were going to come out there at the time. There were a lot of names floating around, but when you're talking about moving, people bail a lot, and they're
Yeah.
like,
It's a
"Oh yeah,
big
that'd be cool," and
big
some people
commitment.
don't fight. Yeah, so Hunter and I basically were like, "All right, screw this. We're going to Park City, and it's just going to be us." So that's how that came around.
That's cool. Ah, good story. That should
Yeah.
be a that should be like a reality show, like with like
Oh,
real athletes, and you've got like all these different characters. You've got like kind of like the scientist kind of look that you've got going on, and listening to some of your podcast. There, guys have great hosts. I'm sorry, great guests on, and present yourself very fluently, affluently, and then you got Hunter, who's just he. We all know he's a very intelligent person at this point, but
right.
he's kind of like, well, if you act like a dumbass, you get more people to do shit for you. So
Yep.
cool, I get that, and I respect
Yeah.
that. It doesn't
Yeah.
work for
Hunter.
me. I have to present myself not like a dumbass, or try to at least, but it works
Right.
very well for Hunter because he's rocking it out, obviously.
Right, and Hunter understands that it's never the 4.0 GPA guy who runs the company. It's I'm not gonna say it's always the dropout, but stereotypically it's the dropout who learned how to handle people, who
C
hires
students.
the exactly. It's the C student who needs the A student to run his company, but guess who's still in charge of the company? It's the C student.
I am. You and I see eye to eye on that, sir.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so here we go. Boom. TMX. 30 minutes later. All right. So like two massively different brands, Tough Mudder and Spartan, and Tough Mudder is actually doing such a great job of individualizing themselves with this launch of TMX, and I really cannot wait to go out and give it a shot next year. But it's a whole day of you arrive in Virginia, and it's a whole day of you've got is it Virginia, correct? Am I incorrect when I say that? Where the championships?
Right. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a
Okay.
Tough Mudder Championships.
Um, so yeah, and that's what I'm just referring to with this little breakdown here. So you arrive and you got like Coach and E-Rock, and they're breaking stuff down, and they're taking you through all of the entire course, and then you're allowed to actually play on the course and test out your challenges that you're going to do, and where poor Michael Mark. If you're listening, wish you a speedy recovery, buddy. Um, you get to test everything out and just try it. Um, and then you've got a whole kind of day to just get have the butterflies in your stomach because you're kind of sizing everybody up. You got a bunch of CrossFitters there. You got some American Ninja Warriors. You got literally everybody from all walks comes to show their stuff that they've been preparing for in, as you mentioned before, their various camps. And when I say camps, I don't mean like just Yancey camp, but you've got like your holistic mindset coach, you've got your physical coach, you've got your race day preparation people that give you the tips and tricks. So my question is just very vaguely, like what is that like arriving to? I mean, you've got qualifiers, woo woo woo, hooray! But championship, like that's game time. You've got so long before you actually go, and it's 12, 13 minutes of actual go time and 48 hours of build up. What's the psychology of that? Like, how do you feel when you land versus when those guys are breaking down the obstacles versus go time? And we can kind of chunk it up a little bit if you'd like, because I know that's a very loaded question.
No, I feel pretty blessed in that my coach has always told me this since the beginning. When I came into OCR, I have consistently performed beyond that which my training would justify. Like if you were to have 5 training marks, like max pull-ups, fastest mile you can run, all these different markers, the times and the stats that I would put down on those compared to somebody else in training would not be impressive, but then I would beat that person in races all the time. And my coach would always say, you have a piece that I don't have to work on, which is usually something that you either have or you don't, or it takes a ton of work on, which is mental game.
Right.
I think I'm just so jazzed up about having fun that most of that stuff melts away. And it's actually pretty entertaining to watch. It's kind of sad because we're all friends too, but it's pretty entertaining to watch competition who are just head cases and they start losing it and stressing out and having stress poops and all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I get there, I've noticed this. I've got some theories as to why it happens, but the couple days, about a week out from a big race, like a big A race, like World Championships or Tough Mudder X Championships, I like compress. I'm not very, you wouldn't look at me and be like, oh, he's excited. Like Hunter the whole time was like, dude, are you excited? It's a few days away. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm pumped. Because I know when I get there is when it all comes out. Like when I get on site the first time and see the obstacles and start seeing everybody, I'm just suddenly like, ah! And I get so excited. And it's like it's been like building up for like a week. And all of a sudden it just goes through the roof on actual race day or the day before, which is perfect, I think, because it's just draining to be excited every day for a week leading up to it. But when you get there, the thing is we had 3 races in one day. There was qualifiers, then was semifinals like 4 hours later, and then 2 hours later there was finals. And so you can't really, like, as off my tits excited as I was, there's only a certain level you can let yourself go because you got 3 of these things that you got to stay, awake for. And if you give it everything you got, you're just super excited. Like people think about during the race, that's where the tapering is. There's tapering before that. I can't go in, like I'm excited, but I can't just be all over the place, running around, excited, talking to everybody, hanging out in the sun until after all 3 races are over because I got to save all that energy. So there's anticipation. I got a little bit of anxiety this time because I hadn't run for 4 weeks leading up to that. It had all been like assault bike work. And so, running is a very different tax on your body than an assault bike. And so I was a little bit nervous about that, but honestly, that melted away as soon as I got out on the course and started playing with the obstacles and the weights and being like, oh, I got this. This is what I've been training for.
That's great. So, and this was when you got on the obstacles the day before actual competition?
Right, yeah.
Right, gotcha. Okay. So, now, are you running 3 different courses that day? So same course. Break it down for me. How's that work?
Qualifiers and semifinals were the same. By the way, we didn't know how they were going to do this. Kind of like CrossFit unveils stuff as you go. We didn't know what the course was going to be like. We just saw a bunch of equipment on the course, off the course, and we were like, okay, I see 75-pound dumbbells over there. What is that for? I see
Ooh,
this. And
what
I
are
see
those
that.
for?
I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay.
So the first two qualifiers and semifinals were the same course. And then finals, they took the weight up and they changed movement. So they changed what were originally two 50-pound dumbbells, one in each hand. You had to do a hang, jerk, and press. You had to do 15 of those. They changed that to 15 one-arm snatches with a 75-pound dumbbell, which honestly
Damn.
I would have preferred. It's heavy, but I would have
Yeah,
preferred
that's a
that
lot of
movement.
volume for
Yeah,
that weight.
exactly. And then they added on the Atlas or on the farmer's carry, it was two 100-pound kettlebells, one in each hand. They
Hmm.
made it so that you have to do 5 deadlifts with them, carry them forward, do 5 more deadlifts with them, carry them back to the original place, and do 5 more deadlifts. Essentially, it turned into like 3 CrossFit workouts with a little bit of running and wall hopping in between, and it was incredible. It really speaks to the athlete that Hunter is, that he was able to not just hold on to the win, but win by a large margin.
Right,
Because
right, yeah.
if you look at the finals, it's just nothing but CrossFitters and then Hunter.
And then
Well,
Hunter.
Isaiah's in there, but Isaiah was like,
What happened to him? There's a big gap there, and Isaiah. I mean, can you speak on that? Because we don't want to.
I don't know. I'm gonna find out if I can by talking about it and seeing if I
Okay.
get a message saying, "Hey, that was not okay." Uh,
I'm sure all these
Isaiah.
CBS execs listen to this show.
Well, so here's the thing. If you're listening in, guys, you did say that we were allowed to have film up to 2 minutes. So if I would have been recording those 2 minutes, then somebody would know about this anyway. So here we go.
There you go.
So Hunter wins by a large margin. Everyone knows that. That's been posted everywhere. But
Right.
what everybody doesn't know, because they don't see Isaiah on the podium, is that he was in second place, like no question. It wasn't as big of a lead, but he had probably 30 seconds on second place at that point. He goes up to rope-a-dope, which is a rope climb where you have to dive out over water, catch yourself on a rope, pull yourself up, hit the trussing, and then climb down a diagonal rope over the water onto the land. Well, everybody's hands, as you saw with mine, were just shredded at this point. And Isaiah jumps out, climbs up a little bit, but then falls into the water. You're allowed as many retries as you want, or you're allowed to go do a penalty loop where you have to carry a weight on your back for, I don't know, maybe 200 meters. Well, Isaiah decides, I'm a freaking obstacle course racer. I'm not going to win this race or get second place by running a stupid penalty loop for a rope climb. So he
Right.
decides to stick around and give it 2 more tries. But unfortunately, if he would have made the decision immediately after the first fail to do the penalty loop, he still would have gotten second place. I'm very confident in that. But he didn't. He decided to stick around, try 2 more times, and then go do the penalty loop when he finally decided my hands are just gone. I can't. And by that point, 2 or 3 people had passed him.
Yeah. And was the rope just really wet or muddy, or was it because his hands were literally shredded to the bone?
It's because his hands they're just bloody messes. If you look at anybody's photos from after that race, that's like the number one thing talked about. Brooke Entz, who was supposed to be, the mother of all CrossFit girls, who was coming to this race, who was just going to wipe everybody clean. She didn't even make it halfway through the qualifiers wave because her hands just got shredded on one of their obstacles.
What is shred? Because I was hanging out with Dylan Moralia last weekend,
Uh-huh.
and we were chilling at the pool by the hotel I was staying at after the race, and I pass him a cocktail, and I'm just like, this mangled claw comes out to receive this vodka tonic, and I'm like, whoa, bro, what happened to your paws there? And he's like, TMX, and everybody has that same effect. So what the hell are you guys doing? Is it just because there's not that many kipping pull-ups that you do, right? There's a couple chest to bars. What is it?
Okay, so it's a combination of things. First, it is the chest to bars, because that bar was really wet, or not wet, but it was this material that if you were even slightly sweaty, which it was so humid there, you
Right.
were constantly sweaty even if you weren't racing. That it got to the point to where Ryan Atkins even came up to me and asked if he could use my liquid chalk, and I was like, holy crap! If Ryan Atkins, the mother of all grip strength,
Yeah.
is saying, "Can I use your chalk?" then I better use this too. And so everybody was chalking up. And when you chalk up, it's great for maintaining your skin's position on a bar. But if you have to move, like rotate your hand around a bar, the chalk doesn't let go of the bar. That's the whole point. And so your
Yeah.
skin goes with it.
And also, if the bar's wet and there's no moisture on your hand because of the chalk, and then you've got
Right.
that juxtaposition of grip, wet. The skin's just like, I'm gonna stay right here, but
Yep.
that makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
There was just everything against us to not have ripped hands on this. That the ropes that we had to use to get up walls to come down from obstacles were not the nice kind of ropes that you want to hold on to. They're the kind of ropes you
It's
build.
like a tractor barn, a barn building
Yeah,
rope that
I
like
don't
the
even know
Amish
what
would
you
pull
use
up a
these
barn.
for. The
Gotcha.
kind you don't touch without gloves on, basically.
Right, right, right.
And then on top of that, the sandbags, you got to think about it. We're not holding bars and doing reps with a bar. We're holding a sandbag's handles that every time you go through a motion, it's rotating, 2 times every time in your hand. And it's just all this wet friction. So, yeah, everybody, you can look up Orla Walsh, Isaiah Vidal, anybody who posted pictures. There's one, at least one picture of just bloody hands everywhere.
Damn. That's
Yeah.
that's rough. That's rough. But
It was
hey,
a great, though. It was a
worth
great.
it. Worth it. I can't wait to tear my hands up next year in whatever heat I make it to.
Dude,
Shit,
I
man.
100% recommend anybody do it because there's nothing. I mean, I like one of my training mentalities is train so hard during your training that when you get to the race, you're like, oh, whatever. This isn't as hard as the stuff I do in my training.
That's right.
Well, I have never, no matter how hard I try, I have never hit the point that I have twice now in my life. One at the original Tough Mudder X Championships last year, and then the TMX Championships this year. Because there's just nothing quite like having a crowd of hundreds of people, and then on top of that, your coach's voice about 4 feet from your ear, while your heart rate is as high as it's ever been, while you're lifting weight that's heavier than you ever, well, as heavy as you ever do,
Mm-hmm.
and you're fighting for money, you're fighting for placement, you're fighting for pride, you're fighting to justify the amount of hours that you put in every freaking week for the past, who knows, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. And you've got people shouting at you, pick it up, pick it up. You don't break these, don't set that down, pick it up. You got your coach right there in your ear. It's this place you go to where people talk about the runner's high. There is nothing that compares to the TMX high when you cross that finish line. And I have a mentality where when you cross the finish line or when you're done with a workout, no matter how bad it hurts, you do not lay down because it teaches your body that was the peak of what I can take. Whereas if you stand up, no matter how bad you feel, you teach your body, I'm okay. This didn't kill me. Well, at the end of TMX, I was like, I don't care. I'm laying down and I'm not getting back up ever. This was insane. And there's only 2 times I've ever had that feeling, and both of them have been in Tough Mudder X.
Holy shit, that was quite the recount. And the to your point about keeping that sharp mentality so that uh, uh, the hard work that you put in pays off on game day. There's a quote that comes to mind that says, "You earn your medals at practice. You just pick them up on race day." So I mean
I
that's
love that.
I think that speaks to the mentality behind your training and your whole group that you run with.
But
Um,
I would say I get that partially, or I don't know if I get it from, but Hobie Call has a video with Spartan Race that where they featured him, and he sums it up pretty great. He says race day is not, I forget exactly what he says, but race day is not the hard work. It's a celebration of all the hard work you've already done. And I think that's why I'm just always, if you come up to me, anybody here, come up and talk to me. I love meeting new people. If you meet me, I'm just like grinning ear to ear like an idiot. That's why half my race pictures are just me smiling my head off because it's like, this is why I do most of my training I enjoy, but I can't deny that there are a few sessions a week that I'm not just like, I do not want to get up right now. I would much rather hang out here with my puppy or my family or go on a date with this pretty girl or whatever instead of this training session.
or eat ramen because ramen's so delicious.
Oh,
Um, so so let's talk about the time. And I only want to take up a few more minutes of your time because I know you got all sorts of hey, what's up?
as long
What's
as you
her?
want, dude.
Hi, what's her name or his name?
This, I know he's so beautiful that everyone thinks he's a girl. This is Coda.
I get that also. I'm just so beautiful. People feel that I'm a girl.
People assume
Uh,
you're a female. Like,
hey, what's up, Coda? How are you? That is a beautiful dog. Beautiful.
thanks,
If you're
dude.
just listening on the audio, man, tap in on YouTube because this is one beautiful dog, and
Yeah.
Benny is making out with it.
Oh yeah.
So the 4 hours between the 4 hours between the workout, and and a blend of a question between your mental game that you have so naturally. What you compete, and you're obviously competing to be invited to the next round. But from what I've heard, there are air conditioned, like Ian Hosick and his athletes were like, get in a tent right now, cool your body off, et cetera, et cetera. How do you keep
Mhm.
your how do you keep yourself inside that mental bubble of competition and not throttle down into a kind of a restful state? Was Yancey having you simulate these workouts where you would be on for 8 to 12 hours, where you'd work out once and then 4 hours later come back, and et cetera, et cetera? Can you
Yep.
dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so that's a very multifaceted answer. And first,
I don't ask simple questions. I want to get as much out and put it on you as quickly as possible.
that's good. And you should keep that in mind. If you ever interview Ryan Atkins, if you ask that man a question that has even the slightest ability to just say yes or no to it, he will say yes or no. Just be like, yeah,
Yeah, awesome.
no.
That's a good
Like,
thing I talk
Ryan,
so
we want to
much.
hear you talk. Come on,
Right.
talk.
Dig deeper, man.
Right. But anyways, love you, Ryan. So leading up to TMX, every single Saturday, can you hear my dog howling?
Oh yeah, absolutely. She wants, or
And
he wants to get back on camera.
hold on. Yeah, go ahead. One second, one second.
Sure, man. No
He
worries.
was all under the couch. Oh, hold on.
Take your time. And
He will
this
not
is what
bark.
Benny Gifford does in his off time. Did you
He
lose the
will not
ball?
bark if he doesn't find this ball.
Yeah, no worries, man. Give him some of your ramen.
He's probably gonna come back. He's so smart. His nose is so incredible that yeah, I threw a different ball and he's already back. Like that's
It's like
not the ball
that's
I'm looking for.
not the one I'm looking for. All right, so the 4 hours between. I mean, you've got what 12 hours that you've got to keep on for this.
Right. So what we got good at was every single Saturday, Hunter and I would wake up and we would do the whole day as if it was Tough Mudder X. We're not allowed to take warm showers with soap because we're not going to have access to that at Tough Mudder X or what we imagine. We're not going to have a hot tub where we can go, soak after each race, but we would work out. Originally we didn't know that it was going to be 4 hours and then 2 hours of separation. We thought it was going to be like they had been leading up to this point, which is basically every hour and a half to 2 hours. So on Saturday, we would do three workouts all within 2 hours of each other and then with ascending difficulty. So to simulate qualifiers effort, then semifinals effort where you got to push,
Got
where
it.
you're out or you're making it, and then finals where if you have anything left after this workout, you didn't do your job. So go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
Though they were all they were also I saw you take a breath like you were
I
gonna
was
say something.
gonna ask something, but I've cut you off several times, so I'm gonna shut up. And in saying that,
You're
I've
good,
cut you
man.
off again.
We're having a conversation.
We are.
People call like that. I think that's one thing Hunter and I do well is we try not to make it an interview. We just call it a conversation because people interrupt each other all the time in conversations.
Yeah.
So the workouts were all what we again thought the course was going to be like, anywhere from 10 to 13 minutes of effort. And then on actual race day, when we found out we had 4 hours in between our two races, we were like, I'm not going to hang out here in this athlete tent as much as I want to hang out and talk to all my friends and all these new CrossFitters I want to get to know, do interviews with Matt B. Davis, who was there, and just hang out and watch everybody else race. We're going to be smart as much as we didn't want to be. And there was a hotel that we had maybe 6 or 7 minutes from the venue. And so we went back there, we showered, which honestly, showering is a huge thing. You look good, smell good, feel good, perform good.
Absolutely.
And so if you can shower in between some kind of event, I would definitely do it because it totally resets everything. You don't feel creaky anymore. You feel clean. You feel ready to go. I mean, if you want to experience what I'm talking about, try showing up to a gym like already filthy and work out already filthy. Like it just,
You
I
know,
don't like it.
I've done that a few times, and once you start your initial, it sucks. It's terrible. But if you can get to your initial sweat to kind of like to kind of purge the funk from whatever you're doing
Yeah,
before, then it's not so bad because your body's in essence kind of showering itself in
right.
your own waste product. But if you don't think about it as scientifically as that, it's not so bad. All right, so you got 4 hours. You go back to your hotel and you shower and you watch some TV. You chill out, And
Well, we talked and we made sure to have a real chill conversation. Like we weren't necessarily talking about competition. We were a little bit, but basically we've done this so many times that at that point there was nothing weird. Like we didn't have somebody there like you see in the like Rocky movies where they're like massaging and be like, you are the
you
best,
gotta
you are
got
the
me,
strongest,
got
you
me,
are the
Rock.
most muscly.
Yeah.
And we're just chilling. We're just having a good time, having a good conversation. One of our buddies who we met out there, even though Hunter was friends with him for a while, Matt Walrath, great guy. He came with
Oh, he's
us, and we,
beautiful. That guy's a brilliant nutritionist.
yeah, dude, we just had him on, and
I
every word out of his mouth, I'm like, dude, where have you been my whole
freaking
life? So,
gold. That was 30 minutes of solid gold. Guys, if you fourth wall break, if you don't have a chance, or if you have a chance, check out the latest episode of Obstacle Dominator, which actually I haven't said up until now. Young Benny here is a co-host of, and Matt Walrath, who is the purveyor of Beyond Macros.
mhm.
Is that correct? BeyondMacros.com.
Yep,
Information
yep.
and not a lot of bullshit, which is, I appreciate that very much because there's only so many hours in the day. Um,
Hunter kept wanting to like streamline it to trash talk. I was like, shut up, Hunter. This
I
is
heard
really
that.
good
Yeah,
content.
he was talking and boners, boners, vasodilation, things to know about also. Because if you
Yep.
don't have a chub in the morning, you might want to get checked out, guys, at least. Okay, so
Yep. Yep.
you're chilling for 3 hours of the four, and then it's time to walk or Uber or whatever back to or scooter or ride a unicycle,
Yeah.
knowing you
We had
guys. Um,
we had a car and we drove it back. And that last hour, the whole time you're trying to toe the line of eating the right type of food, which with 4 hours becomes different than what we had imagined with 2 hours. And that's one thing I learned big time at this event was too many carbs. That's bad. That's no
I heard
bueno.
you had the poopy
And
pants.
I did have the poopy pants without the actual literal pooping of the pants. I had the poopy
It feels
pants.
like you got a
Uh,
brick in your butt.
in your butt and you're squeezing your cheeks the whole time and makes it so you can't run very fast.
At
So
least at
I
least your core was tight, you know.
yeah, I qualified just fine during the qualifiers, but I came through and I talked to my coach afterwards and he was like, "Why are you so mad?" I was like, "Dude, because I did what I was supposed to, but it felt like a semifinals effort because I was trying not to crap myself the whole
Yeah,
time."
you gotta poop. Just gotta let fly, man.
But see, that's such a noob mistake that I am still learning all these things. Like I knew what to eat and I knew when to eat it. I just ate too freaking much of it, and so my body
Ah,
was trying to shuttle out all these carbs because I didn't have it down to a science like I do now after talking to Matt about what kind of carbs, sucralose, fructose, is it fruit, is it grains and wheat, what kind is it, have you topped off your stores? And so in my mind I was just like, I'm just going to eat too much of everything, and then anything I don't eat I don't use, or it gets stored as fat or whatever,
right.
which I don't care. But no, that is incorrect.
So when you were training on your Saturdays with Hunter, you would not eat in a similar simulatory. You would not simulate the nutrition as well, or is that just
we
something that you
would
overlooked?
we would, but we didn't. To be honest, and we talked about this for 3 weeks leading up to TMX. Is hey, dude, next week we need to remember to actually map out our nutrition and follow a plan and test it out. And then that week would come and pass, and we're like, oh, hey, we need to do that next week.
Yeah,
So
just continue to push it back. Yeah,
so we kind of just overlooked it, and to be honest, it was our own damn fault. We had guests come out several times throughout those 2 months we were out there, just different training buddies and stuff.
yeah.
And usually our rule was they can only be here for like 4 days max, and then there's got to be like a whole week in between each guest because we're here to focus. Well, that didn't end up happening. For the last 2.5 weeks, we just had guests the entire time, and we're trying to be good hosts instead of being super focused and stuff. So we let that part slip. We did for the most part simulate it. Like I wouldn't eat anything that I couldn't have on race day. Like I wasn't going home and making big elaborate meals in between each one. It was something like oatmeal or a sweet potato that I could bring with me, or a smoothie that I could bring in the cooler. The difference was when you have 4 hours in between an event, you're not going to just survive off of a sweet potato. You need a lot more food, and then things get tricky. So, learning lesson for next year. But overall, that's the only thing I felt unprepared for, and like I totally screwed up.
Yeah. Okay. So you just kind of overfed on game day.
Yeah,
Okay.
big time.
Hell yeah. Okay, so we're coming up on a long time here, and I want to respect your time. But I think I'd love to close. Um, I want to just ask your opinion on your mental game that seems to come very easily to you. There's a lot of people out there who are listening that are elite level, but also some people who are like, man, I'm looking for some pointers on. I'm in the corral with everybody else, and I maybe hesitant about my performance or my showing, my whatever. And mental game is such an overlooked aspect of the average to elite, middle of the pack, if you will, competition, competitive person, I suppose. Kind of jumbly there. Um, drop some knowledge on the listeners real quick on what they can do when they're in the corral, whether it's box breathing, whether it's Wim Hof breath, whether it's a specific set of shakes or a mantra. Like, what does Benny Gifford do to uh, get his mind straight before he competes?
Okay. Well, uh, the number one, I'll come back around, and since your question was once you're already in the corral, I'll come back around and answer that. But I would say prep yourself leading up to that corral. Don't just think you're going to be able to get in there with your current mentality if you've already struggled with it and just be totally fine. Something that I say it comes naturally, but I say that because I mean it was naturally in there, but I had a lot of stuff in the way I had to get out first. So I wasn't always fantastic on race day because of mentality. There was a time when I got really competitive, and it's when I first started, connecting with sponsors and being on pro teams and stuff like that. The first team I joined was Team Lou. It's not really around anymore. There might be some people smiling and laughing if they hear Team Lou now because it's not around anymore. But it was it was a decently competitive team at the time. And when I joined the team, it was like my first taste of like sponsorship or a team. And so I felt all this pressure and, whatever, everybody knows who the leader was, but he would call me and for like an hour every day would just be like, you've got to beat this guy who's at this next race and this and that, and you can do it. And, positive stuff, but also like against reality type stuff. Like, I need you to beat Hunter McIntyre and it's your second race. You can do it if you believe in yourself, the
That's
power of the mind, blah, blah, blah. And which I 100% believe in, but that doesn't mean you just change reality. And so anyways, there were a few races where I just was miserable leading up to it. I was anxious. I was nervous. I did not have fun. I was super pissed at the end if I didn't win. And I realized at one of those races when somebody started calling me, I'm not going to say it actually because I don't want this to become like my new nickname because it used to be and it was fun, but I'm kind of glad it's gone.
Okay. Are you sure you don't want to
But
say it? It might not stick. You
no,
never know.
no, people will comment on
Okay.
here.
All right.
Let it go that far. But anyways, they called me something that reminded me to have a fun mentality when I race. And now, like to come back to how I was on the first time I raced, before there was pressure, before there was prize money, before there was sponsorships, before my paycheck depends on this, blah, blah, blah. And so now I just have the time of my life. I go into each race excited to see my friends, excited to demonstrate to myself and to other people my newfound athleticism because I got more fit since the last one. I'm focused on those things. I'm not focused on first place. I'm not focused on a certain time. I'm focused on what I want the event to feel like. And usually that equates to a win. And even if it doesn't, the problem with the other mentality is if I'm so focused on first place and I don't win, okay, well, hold on. Let me back up.
Sure.
The point of winning first place, the point of doing all these things that you want to do is because it feels good. If I give you a Ferrari, why are you happy you have that Ferrari? Because of what it makes you feel. You feel cool, you feel sexy, you feel whatever. If you didn't have any of those emotions, what's the point of the Ferrari if you don't enjoy it or it doesn't make you feel a certain way? So my viewpoint with races is you view what the goal you want will make you feel, because for all you know, winning, for all you know, you can achieve that same feeling even if you don't win. Like at TMX, I'd been
This
building up
guy
to that race.
right here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I've been leading up to that race for like 7 or 8 months, and I didn't even make it into the finals. I got to the semifinals and barely squeaked to the top half of the Well, I mean, I almost qualified for finals, but I was basically glad I didn't because it was too heavyweight. But anyways, I still felt okay. I still felt happy and just excited to be around everybody. It's not accepting mediocrity. It's accepting that you're here for a particular feeling. And so when you go into a race, you need to do the why tunnel, which is when you say, okay, why do I want to do the Spartan race? And then you answer that question. And then whatever the answer to that question is, you ask why to that, and then why to that, and then why to that, until it takes you minutes to come up with another reason as to why you want it to win. Because it'll make me feel good. Okay, well, why will it make you feel good? Because people will think I'm cool. Well, why will people think you're cool? This and that. Basically, whatever the core of that why tunnel is that's your real reason, your real why for doing something. And if you focus on the good feeling that'll bring you, it doesn't matter what actually happens on race day. I don't know. That was my sum up.
That's awesome. And I don't want to say anything else because I think that is a hell of a note to end on.
Okay.
Mr. Beni Gifford, thank you for your time. Rock solid. And your dog, thank you for his time. And your mom, thank you for her time.
Yeah.
I got I appreciate it. And you have really, really dropped some knowledge bombs that I know our audience has appreciated. So guys, make sure that you follow Benjamin Gifford on social. Where can we find you, man? Facebook, obviously. You've got Obstacle Dominator. You've got, what else? Is there like a fan mail address that we can write to you?
So if you're on Facebook, it's you can like my athlete page at Beni Gifford. So Beni Gifford, and then Instagram is Beni Gifford also. And
Makes sense.
Yep, and then Obstacle Dominator is the other podcast that I'm plugging on this current podcast. So if you like this podcast, you're already probably listening to Matt B. Davis's, to ours, to Heather Bodie's podcast. So thanks for having me on, Philip. It was great to actually meet. I've heard your name before, and I've heard interviews with you with Matt B. Davis and stuff. So it was cool to actually finally meet.
Thank you. I don't remember the interview with Matt B. Davis, but maybe it was another Philip. Who knows? Either way.
Or it wasn't an interview.
People interview Eli. They want to talk to Eli because he's the smart one. I'm the C student. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, Eli's the one who wasn't so impressed with my Benny's breakdown videos.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right. He and I haven't discussed that yet, but I'll talk to him and review that with him also. But I think they're great.
Thanks, dude. Well, if anybody wants to train with me also at yanceycamp.com, just go to yanceycamp.com, select me as your athlete, and then you get access to my training program that Coach Trains gives me every week. So, and then we message each other, we train together, and we become macho together.
Hell yes, that is a wonderful tidbit to throw in there. All right, Beni Gifford, thank you so much for your time.